notoriously have a problem with people being gay. So you're homophobic. You just blatantly admit to being homophobic? You realize that means I automatically don't like you? Because that's really fucked up. You promise you aren't you promise you guys aren't just joking. I mean, okay, but my sister is lesbian, which
Welcome to GayTalk 2.0, the ultimate podcast for your dose of dish.
Oh, lordy, lordy, lord. My sister's a lesbian. Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of GayTalk 2.0, an LGBT podcast streaming live on Digital Stream Radio, where you can access that live stream every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can do so by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. Joining us today, or returning back to the show, is Ed Decker. He's the founder and the artistic director of the new Conservatory Theater Center, a company he founded 40 years ago, which has grown to become the premier LGBTQ plus art center in San Francisco. He's going to join us to talk about In Good Company, which is in its second season, a podcast for when life goes off script. My name is Tom, and I am your host, and I'm in the studio, of course, with my friend, the one and only...
Hey, y'all, Nick or Trish.
And thank you all for joining us. This is The Dish, so we're going to jump into some stories, and then we're going to have our guest on, so I'm super excited. Anyway, Nick, how are you, darling?
I'm good.
You good?
Yeah, just the two of us.
Just the two of us. Oh my God, we're back there again.
If we try, just the two of us.
Lord have mercy. Care to explain a little bit about that opener? I feel like we need to just sort of kind of like talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, sure. First, have I ever shared with our listeners my secret talent? When it comes to that song, Just the Two of Us?
The rap?
Yeah.
We had a whole recording about it.
We did?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, then never mind.
Like 2 years ago, we recorded it where you like memorized the whole... We did it for Christmas.
Was it Christmas?
Yeah, we were sitting here. We were like literally sitting here rapping.
Oh, God.
We were some rapping bitches.
I was not rapping. I was reciting lyrics, but...
Well, I mean, of course, if it comes from you, it's reciting, not rapping. Gotta love her. But tell us a little bit about the opener.
All right, yeah. So there was a viral video of a 12-year-old gamer that obviously went viral.
Over 800,000 views so far.
On LGBTQ plus issues. He is a 12-year-old who has a sister who's a lesbian, and he was playing a game, and there was some homophobic banter going on. And the 12-year-old decided to, take a stand and school some people.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic.
Amazing.
It was freaking hilarious. I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my God, and my sister's a lesbian. Wait, my sister is lesbian. He didn't even like articulate A or is. It was just hysterical and funny, but also very meaningful because it really just goes to show you that children at that age in today's generation is woke.
Yeah,
they're
100%.
Super woke.
I mean, he says, so you just blatantly admit to being homophobic.
Right.
You realize that means I automatically don't like you because that's really fucked up.
And it is, and it's great. But the thing is, so I love what he did. But I think that now he needs to follow it up with, you're getting blocked. I'm not playing with you anymore. Right?
Yeah.
Because in the video, you see that he's just playing. I mean, he's going off on whoever is on the receiving end of this conversation. But, it would be cool to know if, I'm not doing that anymore. I support my sister 100%. And I don't know what happened behind the scenes, right? Because the video ends. but it's very impactful. It really
Well,
says a lot.
in the article, it goes on to say, he says that his sister is a lesbian. She's gay, and you blatantly said you don't support gay people. He continues driving the point home. I genuinely do care, and I want to have this argument. He goes on in another video to try and explain that not all LGBTQ people are gay in his own 12-year-old way, but it didn't seem to convince the other players.
Well, I mean, when you have someone who is homophobic, really, they don't want to hear what it is that you have to say.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I think is really powerful about it is the sister was the one that filmed him saying this and playing the game.
And he didn't even know that was happening?
No. And
can you imagine?
Yeah, and she was sitting there probably feeling really proud. I mean, in one part of the article, she did say, she's like, it is so nice to know that my little brother hears me and is listening to me and, supports me. And I think that's what's so beautiful about the story. Yeah, he should not play with those people again, or maybe he should and continue the conversation. I don't know what the right answer is, but at the end of the day, he is a 12-year-old growing up in a household that's accepting, and he's accepting and supportive as a 12-year-old, which is so beautiful.
And affirming. I mean, he's affirming his sister's right to exist.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a bad relationship with none of my siblings, and they both know I'm super gay. I mean, obviously you can't miss it.
We know.
Super.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's ever been a moment in my life in where I felt uncomfortable talking to any of my brothers about my situations or my partners or none of that. And there was one instance in where my older brother actually almost got into a physical altercation with someone because they were making fun of me as a result of me being gay. Mm-hmm. And that makes me feel good, right?
Yeah. I
don't have the best relationship with a lot of people in my family. And I feel like that's self-inflicted, but because I'm just a person that I have very little tolerance for BS and ignorance, and so a lot of the times I just sort of kind of remove myself from certain situations, and that's healthy to do. I just want to remind everyone, it is okay to remove yourself from toxic situations when it comes to family members, because although they're family, that doesn't give them a free pass. But there are really a lot of times in where meaningful things happen and they need to be acknowledged. And I feel like my brothers have stepped up to the plate when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Which I think is great.
Mm-hmm.
It
took time for my family, so
we
don't need to walk down that rabbit hole.
Oh, Lord have mercy. It's a big hole. There's a lot of rabbits in there.
Yeah.
No, but I think you're in a good space, and that is worth acknowledging.
Yeah.
Right? The fact that you have a relationship with your father that's totally different than when you came out, and your brother and you guys are super close now.
Yeah.
Right? You're an expected gunkle.
I'm gonna be a gunkle again.
Right? And how's that going, by the way?
It's going good. The baby is an eggplant.
An eggplant at this point. So so we're using fruit and vegetable analogies to figure out more or less what size the baby is at this stage in her development. And so, it's fun. It's fun to sort of kind of learn to identify what the baby looks like by using a fruit. So if he's an eggplant,
we don't know yet.
Big eggplant.
I mean, they actually went and got a ultrasound this week.
Of course they did.
And so we got photos. If that head gets any bigger.
Oh, Lord have mercy. It's a busset head.
No, it's a barber head and a busset nose.
Okay. I'll take it.
Hold on. I'm going to pull up the photo so you can see it. Where is it, fam? And silence.
We'll do a Chris. While you look. Yabol! Yeah, she's still looking. Oh, wait, no. I don't want to play that again. While she looks.
Here she is.
Let me see. Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, it's a cute little pointy nose, though.
Yeah, I know. That's a busset nose.
So it's amazing how, and you guys can't see this, and I apologize. What I'm looking at is obviously a picture of, what do you call those? Ultrasound. It's an ultrasound picture, but they're getting better and better and better. And so you can see the profile of the baby, and it looks adorable, and it's got a cute little pointy nose, and I love it.
Yeah, no,
because
I do
we don't
too.
know what it's going to be. So
Yeah.
I mean, we know what it's going to be in terms of gender, but we don't know what it's going to be when it decides what it wants it to be. Yeah. And so that's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm really excited. You know, I'm talking to a good friend of mine who is a quilter.
Oh.
And
okay.
I want to have a quilt made for the baby. But so what's weird is my mom, last time I saw her, gave me my old baby blanket.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why she still had it, but so I'm going to take
it's something that
I'm going to take
do.
a couple squares from it and then put it into the quilt.
Right.
So
I feel like you need to reach out to grandpa, pa, ma, sister, brother, and say, can I have clippings of, you know, different random things that are really dear to you so that you can have this amazing blanket made.
Yeah, no, I've been thinking about it, but like for some weird reason, I mean, I was obsessed with my blankie as a kid. I don't know if anybody else was, but like
I was.
Yeah, like
I had
obsessed.
mine until I was like 36.
The Easter Bunny took mine away.
It disintegrated in my bed. That's how long I had it.
Yeah.
I couldn't even wash the goddamn thing.
Yeah, no, I hate the Easter Bunny.
Yeah.
But so I'm the only one with mine left. Nobody else has their baby blankets anymore.
Do you sleep with that?
No.
I slept with mine until I was like 36. And then finally, when it was just breaking apart, I was just like, all right, I really need to let this go.
Yeah, no, it's stored
and my
away.
grandmother gave it to me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so weird that we get attached to things like that.
I was on the bottle until I was 7.
Oh, well, you're still on the bottle.
That's true. And I think it was weird because on my 7th birthday, my mother came in, you know, it's like, you know, you're a grown man now. I mean, you're a grown boy now. At this point, it's time to let the bottle go. How about you try this cup? And I'm like, all right, Ma, I think we're going to try this. And then it worked. Yeah. At 7, I actually stopped drinking out of a bottle.
Yeah, so my situation was a little different. I would not let go of my blankie.
Oh.
And then
I had both.
One Easter, it disappeared, and my parents told me that the Easter Bunny took it.
Uh-huh.
And then when they were moving out of the house, I found it in the attic. And I don't think I've forgiven my mom to this day.
It's traumatic.
You can't tell a kid that the Easter Bunny fucking took your blankie.
And where did he put it? In the attic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as an adult, you sort of kind of figure out that was bullshit.
Well, yeah. I still hate
age?
the Easter Bunny.
At what age did you find it?
Oh, God. I must have been 18, 19.
Oh, yeah. I would have been so mad. At the bunny and my parents.
Oh, 100%.
So,
rude.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
Parents
that's
are fucked up. I love them, but they're fucked up.
Yeah, I know. All right, well, listen, we're going to try to squeeze in some stories. And thank you for sharing. That was wonderful and beautiful and traumatic, nonetheless, for you and for me.
Mama Kim, can you just come hold me, please?
Oh, please. Oh, my God, I love her new haircut, by the way.
Yes.
Her haircut is amazing.
On point.
On point. I love it. So sending you much love. Keep doing what you do because you're awesome and great. But we do have stories that we want to talk about. I want to talk about coming out. So we know the term coming out, and it's something that, you know, we're familiar with. And obviously it's something that we want to at some point not have to be a thing. But, you know, there's coming out of the closet, and now there's coming out of the coffin. So for most of you who know Elvira, the Mistress of the Dark, she is a character that has been in my life for many years, and I mean decades. I've watched her grow up and do Halloween specials and blah whatnot, and she recently came out of the coffin, and she revealed that she has been in a 19-year relationship with a woman who she holds dear, and I'm talking about it being iconic. This woman is iconic for me. And Nick and I were having a conversation off camera before we started recording today, and you didn't know who she was.
I have no idea who this person is. Yeah.
I gagged. But anyway, she's fantastic and amazing. And congratulations to her and her 19-year relationship with this woman who she's in a relationship with. And I think it's wonderful that she came out of the coffin. So, yeah, she's the mistress of the dark.
All right, so tell me a little bit about her.
So she, as you can see, she's very ostentatious in her dressing. She's very dark. She's very colorful in the same way. Like, can you put dark and colorful
She
in the
looks
same?
like a Halloween version of Dolly Parton.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly where I was actually going to go. And she's been this way. She's looked the same for like 3 decades.
Okay.
She doesn't change, and she's just fantastic. So to see her with her natural red hair, when I'm used to seeing her with like her classic like black Halloween wig, is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And I'm really happy because now I can see why I was so like, into her character and who she was as a person, because she was LGBTQ plus all along.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at Halloween in general, which I have never really gotten into, a lot of people have, but the gay community rallies around Halloween because you can be whoever you want to be.
Right.
So it makes sense.
It does. And, for me, it's like, like you said, Halloween is one of those times that, you can be whatever you want and get creative and get colorful and get daring for some people. I mean, look at our previous guests, right? When we think about Maria Connor, she went out for Halloween dressed as a woman, and then it just took over her life, right? And these are things that happen. And so for Elvira, it's just fantastic. I just think it brings me warm feelings knowing that this character who I've looked up to for decades is now, publicly coming out and saying that she is part of the community and she's been in a committed relationship for 19 years. It's great. Fantastic. So
More
congratulations to you, Miss Elvira, the mistress of the dark. Yes, queen. And that's pretty much it. So, but that aside, I want to jump over across the pond. We want to go to Switzerland. So according to pinknews.co.uk, Switzerland prepares for a historic referendum on marriage equality after a long, bitter fight. On Sunday, September 26th, Switzerland heads to the polls for a landmark vote on same-sex marriage, the culmination of 8 long years of drawn-out debate and intense campaigning. Now, we have had many things that have happened in the past, I would probably say 7 or 8 years. For example, marriage equality in the US, marriage equality in Ireland. But right now, Ireland and now Switzerland are poised to be the only 2 nations that have done it by referendum or by, legislative legislative attempts, rather than having a Supreme Court or a higher court deem it either constitutional or unconstitutional. And I think that, the nation is one of the last Western European countries without marriage equality, and only introduced its first law banning anti-LGBTQ discrimination as recently as February 2020, when we were just about going into the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
And I think it's great, and especially Switzerland. It's always been one of those very neutral countries, right? And to think that for such a neutral power in the world that tries not to get involved or is always hosting some sort of, summit to be an arbiter for different countries that are having difficulty negotiating, I would have thought that they would have been, a lot further ahead than this. But nonetheless, this is good news.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because like they go on to say that there is still a lot of homophobia, a lot of hate crimes, and the acceptance of queer people isn't that great, which for me, with who they claim to be, right? It seems weird.
Right.
So, yeah, no, this is a huge step, and I hope that, it happens.
I mean, so that's an interesting question. And a lot of, people are asking, well, how can it be that the majority defines the minority, right? The problem lies in part with Switzerland's system of direct democracy, which allows the public to veto parliamentary decisions via referendum if they collect more than 50,000 valid signatures within 100 days of an official publication of an actual act.
Yeah.
And, and this is where I reach out to our foreign correspondents, whether they're official or unofficial. Hans, help us out here. Tell us. I mean, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you were a Switzerland national. I believe, lived there, and then you moved over to Sweden. So help us out. Let us know what's going on here. Give us a scoop. Tell us what's going on. Break it down for us. We love you. We do that. And but nonetheless, it's good news. It's good news.
Well, it's interesting too, because what you were saying about the valid signatures that would then decline the referendum.
Right.
So I guess they tried this before and they got 61,000 signatures that crushed the law, even though 82% of the people supported same-sex marriage.
Right. And of course, there's always that question, as it says here, how can it be that the majority defines the minority? Again,
yeah,
it's all a matter of laws and the way things are done. And, it's funny how direct democracy, as they call it, can impact the way laws are made and how how it all works its way out through the system. I don't think we're not a direct democracy. We can't directly elect our president, for example, right? The Electoral College does that for us based on a specific percentage of Electoral College votes that are allocated by each state, blah, blah, blah. But it's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah. I just can't believe that we're still at a place where there are so many countries that still don't have marriage equality.
Right. But we're moving ever so fast in that direction in a large part of the world, right?
Yeah.
When you think about Australia, when you think about now Switzerland, and you think about all these, Austria, for example, and, a lot of the European nations that have done this already, and the U.S., that was big. That was huge, right? Because we drive a lot of, I would say we drive a lot of what the rest of the world eventually ends up doing when we enact policies in our own country. So
starting in California.
Exactly. But that being said, congratulations once this is successful to the people of, Switzerland, and let's hope for the best, and let's hope that this doesn't end up in some sort of recall referendum. But we'll expect that Hans will do something for us and let us know. Give us a scoop. Yeah. Thanks, Hans. So what do you got, girl?
This one is kind of a heavy one. Do we want to talk about it?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. All right. So we talked about this last week with a student who was attacked in their school. The
cafeteria, right?
The cafeteria.
Right.
The rainbow flag was ripped off, thrown in the garbage. And there was all this commotion around it,
right.
With the administrators and, local government, whatever. But we now have another case that happened. This article was published on Monday, September 20th. And this happened in Florida.
Of course. I mean, I'm not shocked.
So at the Bartram Trail High School in Florida, there was an anti-LGBTQ rally, and there were slurs. They were stomping on pride flags. They were threatening members of the school's gay-straight alliance. Cell phone footage shared that media shows students yelling anti-gay and anti-transgender statements saying, "There's only two genders, faggot," repeatedly at another group of students.
It's so sad. It's sad and disturbing.
What's weird to me, we saw a lot of this hate and animosity during the Trump administration,
right.
Or he who must not be named. But
thank you.
But the reality is, I feel like it's getting more prevalent. I feel like I'm seeing it more often.
Well, because now we're getting the pushback, right? The people that had the power, that felt empowered to be hateful, to be able to do this, suddenly saw a reversal of the people in charge not supporting that type of behavior, and now they're fighting back. Now they're pushing back and saying, well, just like we did with hashtag not my president, right?
Yeah.
This is their way of fighting back and saying, fuck it.
Yeah, but a hashtag is one thing. I mean, one of the anti-LGBTQ students waved what looked like a handmade Confederate flag. And so I would hope that that individual knows what that means.
One would hope, but it's Florida again.
And
I don't want to knock everyone in Florida and say that, everyone is stupid and that everyone doesn't,
that's not what we're saying.
That's not what we're saying at all. But I'm just saying there's a lot of people out there, and your state is constantly causing issues when it comes to right from wrong. And 60% of the time, it's like a lot of the shit you do is fucking wrong.
Don't get me wrong. I love Miami and I love the Keys, but
right. But aside from that, everything else is just freaking, crazy.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the fact that we have a mother that was saying it was terrifying, it was absolutely terrifying.
Right.
I literally saw a pride flag ripped out of my daughter's hands while this person was waving a handmade Confederate flag.
Right. And again,
this is not the America I grew up in.
Well, I mean, the part of America that you grew up in is not associated with the South, which is, as we know, historically associated with the Confederate States and the fact that they tried to, secede from the Union and, maintain slavery. And then we came in and said, no, bitch, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And we're going to crush you. And
the Confederacy was really all about maintaining white power.
Right, and slavery.
And we are in a time now that we had the 12-year-old that is, standing up for his sister's rights. And then we have a high school student who is standing up for the Confederacy, which literally degraded people. And to this day, we're still feeling the effects of slavery and the Confederacy.
Right.
I mean,
we've got statues coming down left and right of generals that served the Confederacy, especially in southern states. But, it's literally they're venerating and celebrating traitors.
Yeah.
So
I mean, even beyond that, you look at the fact that most of the wealth in our nation is held by white Americans.
Right.
There has never, a certain demographic of our union has never actually had the opportunities that they deserve.
Right.
And
a large portion.
A very large portion. And it's despicable that a kid would wave a handmade Confederate flag.
Furthermore, a grown-ass adult.
I'm literally hoping that this person has educated themselves and knows what that means.
They're going to grow up being bigoted and continue to do this and most likely pass this along to their children. When you think about it, this is one of those states that unfortunately the governor is an anti-vaxxer. Right? Doesn't believe in vaccinating, doesn't believe in masking, doesn't believe in none of that. Yet you've got cases and cases of people coming up positive for COVID, etc. And so it's a challenge. A worse
place than they were, a
the
year
beginning
ago.
Yeah, the beginning. So it's pretty crazy. And, my heart goes out to these students who are pushing and fighting for their rights to exist and to be valid in society. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy.
The last thing I'll say about this article is that this mother's daughter walked by one of the boys that was a part of this rally.
Right.
And this individual started yelling at her and saying, "You're gay, you have no rights," and started spitting at her.
Which is disgusting. And let me correct you now. They do have rights.
That is my exact point.
Right.
Like, you're uneducated. Yes, we are fighting for a lot of rights right now, and we continue to fight for rights, but we have won so many rights. Are we equal? No. Do we need to keep fighting? Yes.
Absolutely.
But don't ever let anyone tell you that. And don't ever, I'm proud of this individual. They just held their head high and walked past and got on their bus. But we do have the right to live. We do have the right to marry. We do have the right to be who we are.
Right.
no matter where you are in this country.
It's insane. It's insane to think that in 2021 that is still happening. But you know, after 2020, anything's possible.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Anyway, that was a heavy note.
Yes, it was. But it's a much needed discussion that we needed to have, obviously. But we're going to definitely take a break because we do have a guest that's coming on right after our break. So we're going to leave you with some music. And when we come back, we have more dish. So you guys stick around.
She was waiting by the back door, said, babe, we gotta leave town. Get your shit, get your suitcase, your dog, your guitar, cause we gotta go now, cause they're coming. Well, they know our fucking names, yes, they're coming, just the same. Well, I know you don't want to leave your life. You've had some blood and tears, little joy, little strife. But they're coming, well, they're coming down the road, yes, they're coming, truth be told. And don't forget the whiskey, and don't forget your history. It was never their land in the first place, but they're coming just the same. Got a knapsack full of judgment, hypocrisy, and lies. And they're talking so much hateful bullshit, they've begun to gather flies. But they're coming, well, don't look 'em in the eyes. Yes, they're coming, no surprise. And with so much terror in our past, how are you so surprised it's come to bite you in the ass? Yes, it's coming. Well, it's nipping at your heels. Yes, it's coming for the kill. And don't forget the whiskey, and don't forget your history. It was never their land to sell or trade. No, don't forget the whiskey, and don't forget your history. It was never their land in the first place, but they're coming just the same. So I'll meet you at the station where we can get on that train, head out to the wastelands where we can change our names, cause they're coming. Well, they know our fucking names. Yes, they're coming just the same. Just the same. Just the same. Just the same.
All right. Welcome back from the break, ladies and gents. That, of course, was Wastelands by the incredible Amanda Barrick. That album and all of that music is available on all the major music streaming services, so make sure that you go and support your LGBTQ plus artist. Because she is just wonderful. Not only that, she's also the daughter of Linda Stay, which is one of our previous guests, that at some point introduced us to Bobby Edwards, who is the CEO of Squatty Potty. And Dookie, who's sitting right here. But anyway, ladies and gents, welcome back. And joining us now, of course, returning for his second time on Gay Talk is Ed Decker. He is the founder and the artistic director for the new Conservatory Theater Center, a company he founded over 40 years ago, which has grown to become one of the premier LGBTQ plus art centers in San Francisco. Obviously, he's here to talk about In Good Company, which is now premiering on season 2, a podcast of when life goes off script. Ed, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for having me back.
It is our pleasure. So in studio, obviously, you remember Nick.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. You guys are looking well.
Oh, well, we're
Don't
feeling
lie.
good. She's been Pelotoning for like 3 or 4 weeks now, right?
No, it's like 4 now.
It's 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So he's been doing his little part to make sure that he maintains that looking well part.
I fit into a pair of pants that I have not fit into since COVID.
Which is great.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Congratulations. We all have to move out of that elastic sweatpant number, right?
I mean, do we though? Like, I keep showing up to work and I'm like in shorts and a polo and I'm like, oh, I'll just throw a blazer on and go to this meeting. It's fine.
Perfect.
So, Ed, how are you?
Just fine. Thank you so much for asking. We are just about 12 days away from reopening the new Conservatory Theater Center. It has been a long 21 months for all of us.
I can only imagine. So you joined us in November of 2020, which we were right in the middle of that pandemic. There was a lot of changes going on, a lot of changes in your theater.
I had just lost my job.
Right. But you, you on the other hand, managed to keep a large number of your staff employed during that pandemic, and you recently just brought back everyone. Tell us a little bit about that.
We were very fortunate to have the 3/4 of the staff were able to stay on board as we, did what most every other theater in the country had to do, which was pivot into a whole new realm of digital art, which of course is your forte, being the hosts of a national podcast and all. And for us, it was a brand new sort of dipping our toes into a whole different, stream. So so we figured out ways in which to do that, and thanks to our supporters, our local, regional, and national supporters, as well as some relief from the federal government, we were able to keep things moving forward in a really creative, energetic, and engaged manner.
That's amazing.
And you're about to open back up too.
Yes, October 8th will be the first preview of a commission by our second commission with a writer named Harrison David Rivers. We are doing the stage version of Interlude, and it's interesting because one of the things we did in our pivot moment was this commission with Harrison David Rivers was first conceived as an audio drama, and we worked through that audio drama and presented it as part of our digital offerings, and we realized that we were still in the interlude of COVID, Delta, the movement, the ongoing movement around social justice concerns and change. And we felt very strongly that we wanted to take that piece forward and bring it to the stage so that folks could gather and bear witness in real time to the story of this young gay Black playwright.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. And the fact that, you're using your art center, your performance stage to bring forward stories of people of color, and
gay people of color.
Right. It's amazing.
Well, it's important in the queer community that we recognize the sort of really broad spectrum of our community, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it's certainly past time for everybody's stories to be included and told, and it's something that we've always tried to do here at the new Conservatory Theater Center. And I find that that we can't get the stories out fast enough to accommodate all the stories that are aching to be told from so many portions of our community.
So when we go back to the fact that we're just coming out of COVID, my theater is about to open up again. We have our first show this Friday. What are you guys doing? I know it's exciting. What are you guys doing to protect all your patrons?
Terrific question. We, like all of the theaters in the Bay Area, and I'm imagining around the country, Nick, your theater's probably doing this as well. For our first show, for our creative team, we've been really kind of in a bubble together. and overly cautious, if you will. Of course, everybody's vaccinated and mask wearing, and we do weekly COVID testing to make sure that everybody is healthy during the process, because eventually the actors' masks need to come down and they have to do their work.
Right.
And so we're looking at all of that on the creative side. Then, of course, there's all of the protocols to make sure that our audiences are safe. And at NCTC, we are requiring that folks be vaccinated, and they will be wearing masks at all times in the facility. Some theaters are already moving into selling concessions and things again, but we've decided for the first show that we're going to just hold back on that. Because if you have concessions, that means people have to take their masks on and off to enjoy them. And we just kind of want to wait and see. I think it's just going to be a slow return for all of us. And I think we're erring on the side of caution, at this point, because we really want to stay open. We've announced a whole season.
Yeah, I see that.
And the last time we announced a whole season, it got completely shut down. So
Well, we've
we're a
all been
little
there.
bit, nervous about that, this time around, because clearly we're not completely out of the woods yet as far as COVID is concerned. And I think we're all realizing that this, health concern is going to be with us for some time to come, and we're going to have to work with it if we're going to, continue.
Right. And you guys are in San Francisco. Obviously, you're part of the state of California, which is the 5th largest economy in the world. And a lot of the policies that are enacted in this state typically sort of kind of trickle down to the rest of the U.S. Because you're leading often in many different genres of policymaking. And so COVID, I would imagine, is no different. Having these protocols in place to protect the public is a serious matter.
Yes, indeed. And I know that there are differences of opinion and feelings around the vaccine and masks and so forth, not just here in California, but around the country. And for now, my personal feeling is that this is a real health pandemic,
Right.
and so many lives have been lost. And if there's anything that we can do to forestall that continuing, then we must do it. It's not a forever kind of situation,
Right.
for sure. And it reminds when we were dealing with the HIV pandemic. As we moved through it, we learned that there were certain things that we could do, and tools that we could use, and education that we could share that would keep everybody safe and slow the transmission of HIV. And I think in many ways where we are with COVID, there are some similarities there in what we're learning and what we must do to stay safe.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the lessons learned, from HIV, and when you think about, for example, one of the people that were at the forefront of that, studying HIV and really, doing all the analysis and the work was Dr. Fauci. And so to have him be at the forefront of the COVID fight, it really says a lot as to why gay people, especially the gay community, are so in tune with reacting to pandemics the way we have as a community.
Exactly. Well put.
So actually, when it comes to COVID, I know we have to move on. I want to talk about one more thing, because dealing with theater, I've seen it recently a lot. How are your patrons reacting to protocols or wanting to come back to the theater? Like, do you feel like people are excited about it, or are they nervous about it? On our end, I feel like we've been getting a mix. We've also been getting some pushback and some patrons that are like, well, I'm not going to buy tickets because I don't want to get vaccinated. So I was just kind of wondering how it is on the West Coast.
I think it's mixed as well, Nick. I know that there's an incredible amount of our audience that is just so eager to get back here, to the theater, and just can't wait.
Yeah.
And our season subscription sales are very, very strong. as I think many theaters around the country, because people are anxious to return. There's nothing like being in the theater and watching a story unfold, before your very eyes. We are prepared for a bit of a roller coaster ride this season in terms of audiences. We are not expecting that it's going to be a consistent, predictable. Well, when is it ever really predictable? I guess, but
Right.
but I think that as things continue to unfold with health and safety concerns, we're going to sort of see that sort of mirrored in the ride for the audience. National surveys, Nick, also suggest that mixed response that you're referring to.
Yeah.
That almost. It depends on sort of where the surges are happening. Where the surges are happening the greatest, then there's a tendency to say, I'm not quite ready to come back. Where things are starting to even out a little bit, you're seeing that change to more folks thinking, okay, I'm ready to go back if there are safety protocols in place.
Yeah, it's definitely really interesting when we look moving forward in this season. When we're looking at budgeting, we're like, okay, well, we can't really rely on ticketing income as much as we used to rely on it. And now we have to kind of, refocus how we're going to move forward this year. So it's been a ride. And I also feel like, the fundraisers of the world, including myself, are like feeling the weight.
Absolutely. Exactly. And you're not alone. I think this is something that all of us are talking about with regards to reopening. But I have to ask you, I know you're supposed to be asking the questions, but I have to ask you, what show is opening for you next week?
So I actually now I work at the Schubert Theater, which is in downtown New Haven. It's a presenting house. We do Broadway tours, but this is our first Kappa Presents show, so it's not a part of the Broadway series. It's Second City, which, of course, Second City.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, I know. It's going to be amazing. So they're coming in on Friday, and then we have our first Broadway show opening up later this month.
Wonderful. Now, when you're selling your tickets in your house, are you intending on selling capacity, or are you already planning for sort of reduced capacity?
So interesting that you ask that. The reality is we are selling for capacity, but I have seen and found that people are that want to come back are actually buying not only their seats but the seats next to them.
Which is, it's a very creative way, expensive, but creative way of ensuring social distancing, which is not something that maybe we're paying too much close attention to in regards to our eagerness to reopen venues in a lot of spaces. So that's creative.
Yeah,
you got to give it up to them.
But I mean, we do have some intense protocols in place. You have to present your, vaccination card or a PCR test within 48 hours or a rapid test within, I think, 4 hours. So we have a lot in place, but at the same time, we are going to be doing concessions. We are opening up our Markham suite, which is like, our donor suite. So people will be having cocktails and taking their masks off. So it's, I don't know. I feel like people are comfortable but nervous. It's a weird place to be in.
Sure. And I think we have to sort of find our way through and, it's not a one size fits all kind of situation. I mean, whenever is it?
Yeah.
We are for this first show, we're definitely sort of staying in the realm of limited seating. Our venues are really small, Nick and Tom. The first show is in our 130 seat venue, and then our two other venues are 60 to 70 and 50 seat venues. We're not using the 50 seat venue at all. And the 70 seat venue we have reconfigured into a theater in the round situation, which allows us to spread people out, a little bit more. So we're just finding our way, and we don't know what's going to work. It's been 21 months since we've had people in the house, as it were, and we've been living through an unprecedented moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's pretty amazing that you guys are still, still kicking, because a lot of theaters, as we know,
Didn't make it.
lost a lot of people, and some didn't make it. So it's so great to have you back. But we should probably move on to the podcast, right?
I want to talk about In Good Company. So we had you, as we stated before, last year in November. We talked about your transition to digital, and being able to keep at least 90% of your staff, which was amazing. And you launched a 10-episode podcast with some commentary on some, things that were happening around in the background. And you're recently launching season 2. You've got quite a substantial amount of episodes now posted for season 2. Tell us a little bit about the journey, right? Going from season 1, creating the podcast, and then jumping into your second season. And how has that been for you?
Right. Well, thank you for asking all those beautiful questions. As you know, season 1 was a response to what the theater industry and this queer theater we're in the middle of when we all got shut down. It's like, what do we do now? And as artists are wont to do, we figured out, well, we've got to make something. And we've got to make something that incorporates, if we can, what we are experiencing. And we also wanted to find a way in which to make this with a sense of humor.
Right.
Because we were not laughing during the shutdown. We've been laughing much for the last 21 months, for sure. So we just jumped in with a team of 5 writers, as you know, and tried to figure out what this little theater company that had been shut down was going to do. And during that time, while we were writing the episodes, the George Floyd murder happened.
Right.
Which was a stunning, heartbreaking, horrific event that sort of stopped us in our tracks, literally.
Yeah.
And then we realized that we had to jump right back in, and these characters had to confront that as well, and figure out how we were going to continue to move forward and look at these issues of equity and fairness and inclusion and justice.
Yeah.
So that's where those first 10 episodes were. Those first 10 episodes were inspired by that, and it was actually a way for us to process what we were living.
100%. Yeah. I mean, and also if you think about the characters in the podcast, it's almost like seeing, for me anyway, it's like a backstage view of what everybody goes through. I mean, developing those characters for those writers, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, but I think that the characters are so important in this story.
Yes, the writers, there are 5 writers, and in the room for episode 1, and then 4 writers and 1 story consultant in the room for episode 2. But what we tried to do was model characters in a truthful, as accurate as possible way to real life theater makers. Now, some were more eccentric than others, and this gave us the opportunity to laugh at ourselves a little bit, and gave us the opportunity to get our characters involved in situations that they had to work through, so that we were not going into some sort of preachy, didactic, lesson, be good citizens kind of story.
Right.
When we jumped into season 2, when it became clear that we wanted to do a season 2 and people were asking us to do a season 2, we jumped in with the conceit that this theater company, it was several months later, and they are preparing to reopen. And what transpired in the months since we had visited them, and in their preparations of re-engaging with opening their doors and booking talent and shows and so forth, became the center of the story, with the personal lives of the characters also sort of spliced into the world as well, because there's the family that we have at the theater, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the family that's outside of the theater.
Right.
And we tried to sort of mix that up a little bit and show where people were landing. Not everybody stayed in the theater. One of our characters ended up leaving the theater and is, of all things, becoming a dental hygienist. Couldn't sort of take the sort of ups and downs of the theater world. Never mind a health pandemic, but just in general, it's not an easy thing to do, as you both know.
It wasn't all peaches and creams at the dentist's office either, because I mean, I wasn't able to see my dentist for like a year and 2 months before I was able to book an appointment for a cleaning and an emergency. Like,
is that what happened?
Yeah, I had an emergency. What do you call this? Root canal. Oh, it was horrible. You know.
Yeah.
But it's
interesting.
This
character decided that she wanted stability. And so she wanted a weekly paycheck and a health plan.
Right.
And not all theaters can provide that, consistency. And then we had two characters, our playwright character and our actor character, who fell in love with one another in the first episode. And when we meet them in the second episode, things are, after shutdown and lockdown and being in close proximity for months on end.
I hate you, get away.
All is not well. So they decide to go shopping for a third for their relationship in an episode called Meet Me in the Middle in season 2, where they try to spice up their relationship with some new dynamics. So we're still sort of staying in the realm of the real world, but it's a little bit on the quirky side.
Well, that's good. I mean, we have to get to the point where we can be playful at this point, right? Because, we went through a lot. A lot of people don't realize from March of 2020, we went through a lot. We're literally going into 2022 now. I mean, we're literally 3 months away, 3 or 4 months away from the new year. We're about to go into 2022. We've been through a lot. And so having a little bit of a place where we can go and escape our reality, the fact that we've just been through a pandemic that we're still trying to fight our way out of is incredible. But I want to ask you a question in regards to the podcast. I remember having conversations about its inception, the planning, the idea, the concepts, and everything. When you're listening back to the work that's already been done and the work that's being done as we speak, how do you feel about it? Because, I mean, for us, we're going this March 2022, we're going on 6 years.
I don't listen back.
Of doing live. I mean, obviously we're creating the podcast. So, I mean, listening back to it at this point is sort of kind of like crazy for us because we hear ourselves talk.
Every time you play something from the past, I'm like, can you just tell her to shut up? And by her, I mean me.
So how does it make you feel when you're listening back to some of the episodes and you're thinking about, wow, we shifted in a way. We created this. How does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel very proud. One of the dynamics of both seasons is that we really took some time. I mean, besides the sort of fun and the quirkiness that I was talking about before, we really took some time to look at how theaters were responding to the calls for change within our own industry. And how do we recenter opportunities? How do we make sure that we are really reflecting and modeling values that are truly inclusive, and also dealing with the fact that the larger system in this country is not always supportive of that sort of change.
Right.
And so for a little theater to be revisiting mission, values, and approaches to ever expanding the queer participation, BIPOC, Indigenous, seats at the table. How do we do that? And this little theater company and the podcast, much like theaters across the country, figure that out to the best of their ability. So if people listening can hear that we were wrestling with some of the very same things that they are wrestling with in their own lives, whether they're in the theater or not, because these questions of equity and inclusion are far-reaching, then that makes me feel even more proud to have sort of put that out there. Do we have all the answers? No. Do the characters in the drama make all the right decisions? Unfortunately, not. But they try, and
Right.
they are taking action to the best of their ability.
Right.
I think that's actually really important, though, because I have worked for a couple different organizations, and yes, theater and the world in general is facing this new world of what inclusivity means, what diversity means. Why haven't we seen representation? How do we actually implement this and make room at the table without pushing people away? Right? Like it's such a difficult topic to broach without actually really diving in and getting the right education and finding the funding to actually educate your board and educate your staff and build your staff. But I think it's important to note that people make wrong decisions all the time.
Agreed.
Whether you are the one expanding and diversifying the table, or you are the one trying to learn and be a part of the new table, we are all making the wrong decisions and the right decisions. And I think that we need to honor those and lift those up, because we are in a unprecedented time. Besides the fact that we're coming out of COVID, we are literally diving into something brand new. I personally believe.
You just gave me life with all of that you just said. I was feeling it, because you're right. Like you said, we had to pivot. We had to learn how to change and do it quickly. Right? We didn't have time. If you took your time, in 2 months' time, you were done. You were shut down. We had to change everything that we knew as a people. Like you mentioned before, we had not seen this in our lifetime. The last time we had a major pandemic was in 1912. It was over 100 years ago.
You were alive, though.
Well, yeah. Oh, I hate you. That was good.
Nailed it.
You know, where we seen something, aside from the HIV pandemic, obviously, but when we had something similar in nature to COVID, was in 1912. That's over 100 years ago.
But then throughout COVID, not only did COVID happen, but we had a intense movement happen.
Oh, of course.
That not only had been happening, when it comes to, diversifying and expanding whatever, it had been happening, but then, there was a catalyst in the middle of the pandemic that we all had to see and feel and hear. And then, the movement around the world.
Right.
And then how do you react to it without making mistakes and without learning from it?
And you know what was most riveting and most transformative for me is to see those people make those choices. We need to push this forward. We need to go and fight for our rights. We need to go and fight to be seen. And to do that in spite of knowing that they were putting themselves in mortal danger in the midst of all that. Yeah. That is courage. That is power. And that is something that will never be able to be taken from all of these individuals that went out there and fought for the, Ahmaud Arbery's and the, George Floyd's and Breonna Taylor and all of these people that, when things happened, they pushed aside their self-preservation and the fact that they needed to keep themselves safe and put themselves in the front of that and in danger to make a significant change.
Yeah. And, Ed, I want to ask you a question, because obviously as an executive director and founder of a theater, you're probably going through what I've been through, but the reality is I think that there are certain things when it comes to this moment that we're in. And for me, when it comes to expanding and diversifying and really embracing new communities that, for lack of a better term, have not been invited to experience the theater or tell their stories on our stage, for me, I think the two most important things for me is patience and education. And I was wondering, like, how your theater is moving forward, trying to expand, bringing in different communities, embracing different communities. What are those values for you guys?
Well, our mission is to promote enlightenment and change through the work that we do here at NCTC. And what's most important in that, or one of the most important things in that mission statement, is that means that you have to listen and you have to hear and you have to see how the world is evolving around you. I mean, this organization is not the same organization that it was 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's not the same organization that it was 2 years ago, as for that matter. So that's very important. I think as far as values, community, education, like you mentioned, Nick and Tom, joy is very important ingredient to this equation, because life is hard, and yes, you need to face the hard moments, but you also need to uplift the joy. Mm-hmm. that keeps you propelling forward.
Yeah.
And so the idea that one of the blessings of being a theater maker or an artist such as yourselves is that we understand how to listen and navigate and move narrative towards change. Right. This is what we are trained to do. And in order to move towards that change, I think it's really about making sure that opportunity is spread as evenly as possible. The power paradigm needs to be, yes, we need leaders, and good leaders make opportunity and include a breadth of difference and uniqueness around them, and that curiosity and that courage and that empathy, those are the things that keep the story moving forward and the change moving forward, in my view.
When we talk about the story and the change that we're moving forward, do you feel like, I know you guys have a new radio play as well, but do you feel like that this podcast and that potentially this new radio play is helping to move that story forward?
I do, because one of the things that we learned with the podcast, and I'm sure you know this already, but it just became news to me, was that our queer stories could reach a global audience.
Yes.
And prior to that, it was sort of the boundaries of geography and our 3 theater spaces. That was the extent of our reach, if you will. And In Good Company has found an audience, in many, many unexpected places. We have 3 listeners in Nepal, and I'm dying to know who they are.
Listen, we are equally as obsessed with our listeners globally, like
the ones in Russia.
We have listeners in Russia. We have listeners in countries in where it is illegal to be a gay person. You can get executed for being gay. So we have listeners in Qatar. We have listeners in nations in where you would be murdered and killed and stoned to death for being a gay male or a lesbian woman. And the fact that they are brave enough to listen and even to correspond, that is even like taking it to another level. I can't tell you how many times we got emails from people in countries that they were in mortal danger, and we were like, oh my God, they're listening to us.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry in advance, right? Like, I mean, we joke about it, but in all realness and in all seriousness, we understand exactly your feeling when you're like, oh my God, we didn't realize that this wasn't just something that was going to impact or give our people in San Francisco a way to still stay connected to us. You start getting listeners from the US and you start getting listeners from other countries, and you're like, wow, this is incredible.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes. And we've been very excited to learn more about our trans and non-binary and our bisexual listeners. And we did, since I last spoke with you, we did two pieces. We did a Mighty Queer variety show where we invited young queer artists to create small video commissions that we then put together over the holidays. And then we followed that up with the Transnational Cabaret, and we worked with trans and non-binary artists who did a similar thing around different aspects of their lives. And so, again, it's about making opportunity and shining a light in places where the light is not often bright, if or even existent.
It's the power of podcasting and audio communication. It's just incredible. Just incredible.
Yeah. And before we let you go, so how do you see your theater company moving forward with podcasting and still engaging those communities that otherwise wouldn't be a part of your theater?
Great question. The In Good Company journey has opened up this whole new vista for us, and we are looking at an umbrella for the podcast called Planet Q. Here Are Stories, in which we will be engaging stories from all over the world and putting them into this theatrical podcast format, not just stories that we create here at New Conservatory Theater Center, but stories from many of the places that you mentioned where being queer is criminalized, or where voices are silenced in other ways. So Planet Q will be a way for us to create another opportunity and to shatter those boundaries and get queer stories circulating, around the planet, as it were, for others to share in, much like your podcast does. It makes you're not alone. We share these stories.
Right.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, Ed, congratulations on, first and foremost, opening up your theater in 13 days. We're excited for you. We're excited for the theater community because I think it's going to be amazing to see people come back. Also, congratulations on season 2. I hope that you continue to use this medium as a means to bring content and spread, conversations and much well-deserved stories to people all over the globe. And you guys are doing an amazing job. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you to the both of you and the rest of your team for blazing the trail and leading the way and teaching me a little bit about how to do something new.
Kind words. You are too kind. My friend Ed, it's wonderful to see you. If you start working on Q World, make sure that you let us know. We would love to feature anything that you're doing. You're always welcome to, join us here on the show. So anytime.
Thank you so much. It was lovely to chat with you both again.
Likewise.
It was great. All right, Ed, we'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, well, ladies and gents, that, of course, was the amazing Ed Decker, again, founder and artistic director of the New Conservatory Theater Center in in San Francisco. I was going to say Los Angeles.
Yeah,
Where the hell did I get that? But nonetheless,
I don't know. You dove deep into that conversation.
I love talking to him because he's so articulate in the way that he just puts everything together and so passionate about the work that you do. You guys in theater are passion is like something that you're born with.
Yeah.
Is it a requisite?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just incredible.
I mean, if you love. Honestly, theater is all about telling stories. And
right.
I mean, it comes generation to generation. The only reason we have folklore, the only reason we have history is because before people wrote things down, before people, they told stories, they enacted things, and that's what theater is. And now, as we move forward in this world, it's about not only telling the stories that have already been told,
right,
but embracing every community and sharing all of our stories and providing spaces that all people can honestly share their stories. And what I think is amazing about his theater is that they are LGBTQ plus focused, and you don't see a lot of LGBTQ stories on a stage. I've seen a couple in my time, and they've been so impactful for me. But having a space where that is their main dedication, where they're literally telling the stories that we live, there's nothing better than that. There's nothing you can't take. You just have to sit with it and be like, this is my story. Right. I'm sitting here watching my story being told to 100 people, 1,600 people, 1,300, whatever it is.
Right.
My story is finally being told. There's a light being shed on our story. And
one way or another, people are going to take those stories and really make of them the best that they can, right?
Yeah.
And take out of them something that will, guide them in a way that, hey, I needed to get away. I went and I saw this amazing, beautiful story. How does that impact me, and how does that change my life? How do I move forward?
Yeah, a huge part of theater, in my opinion, is the conversation that happens after the show.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not. I mean, I took you to see a show. What show was it that I really wanted you to see?
It wasn't On the Grounds of Belonging.
On the Grounds of Belonging.
Was that the show that we saw?
On the Grounds of Belonging.
Yes.
You've seen a couple shows with me, but that show was really, really powerful for me. It was it was about an interracial gay couple in the 1940s, 50s in Texas, and the trials and tribulations they went through, and it was such a powerful story. And watching the show itself was intense, but the reality was, when we walked away from the show, having the conversation with you and having the conversation with different people that we were, interacting with in the audience, was the power, one of the more powerful parts to me, because there were so many people in that audience that had never even heard a love story about two men.
Right. Right.
Let alone two interracial men.
And what's interesting, being that you mentioned On the Grounds of Belonging, we actually did a special episode with both, I believe, the writer and the director, the playwright and the director. Yep. So we had Ricardo Perez and David Sabal on the show. It was a special episode actually titled On the Grounds of Belonging. You can do a search on our GayTalk website. Really listen to why these two incredible, talented individuals did such an amazing play, and why it was featured, because it was just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway. So
that was amazing. Again, we love Ed Decker. And one thing before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone, it is Monday, September 27th. Yes, we are in September. October will be here before you know it. November will be here before you know it. And I just want to remind everyone that this is a midterm election. Please, please, please make sure that you go and familiarize yourself with the policies that are being discussed on your behalf that affect your life, and the changes that we can make if we go out and make sure that we vote people into public office that really are advocating for our rights and who we are as a people. So keep that in mind. We'll talk more about that next week. And with that, I'm going to toss it over to Trish. I'm going to give her some love.
Thank you.
And we're going to move into Mama Kim's Minute.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Tom. Here's Mama Kim's Minute. Number 1, Melissa Etheridge has always written genderless music, and here's why. Number 2, anti-vax employee of school district that banned pride flags showed up in work in blackface.
Boo.
I cannot. Number 3, Patriots owner Robert Kraft spotted quietly watching a gay flag football game. Number 4, Can you believe the Queer Eye guys are getting a Lego makeover?
I'm losing my shit over that one because I'm a hardcore Lego fan. I had Legos growing up.
Oh, I'm a Queer Eye fan.
Yeah, and so hello, Lego Queer Eye fan. It's like, let's go be queer together and build something fabulous. I cannot wait to see the series. All right, it's my turn.
Yeah.
Oh God, forgive me in advance because I have to do this. So on this day in gay history, of course, it's brought to you by us, Nick and Trish and Tom. All three of us are in the studio, both of us personalities, and just me. Thank you. Come on, that was amazing. Where it is in the
Tinkerbell,
the Garden State of New Jersey, when September 27, 2013, New Jersey Superior Court rules that same-sex couples should be allowed to marry. New Jersey Superior Court Judge Mary Jacobson ruled in the Garden State Equality versus Dow, the same-sex couple must be allowed by the state to marry, granting a summary judgment to the plaintiffs in the case. Jacobson orders the state to allow same-sex couples to marry by the 21st of October of 2013. This decision is the first in
U.S. state judicial.
In a U.S. state judicial ruling on same-sex marriage to cite the landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision in the United States versus Windsor, which eventually, in addition to the court case with Obergefell, led to marriage equality in the entire United States in 2015. That's amazing. All right. Well, ladies and gents, I want to thank you all for bearing with us through this episode because Trish and I can get a little, clicky and talky. And but if you love our show, make sure that you go subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting service. By doing so, you get the latest and greatest of our show delivered right to your web browser or your favorite device as soon as our episodes are published. And you can also support us on Patreon, which allows you, our listeners, to support the show with any denomination, which can be in $1 or more, which we collect monthly. And we certainly appreciate and love you for it.
All right.
Trish?
So next week, it looks like we will be welcoming back the one, the only Dr. Evan Goldstein for this month's Tale from the Tail.
Are we sure?
I've got to email them. Anyway, so thank you to our guest, Ed Decker, founder and artistic director of the new Conservatory Theater Center. The podcast In Good Company Season 2 is available on Apple Podcasts and other podcast services.
Yes, Queen. And now here's Nick with a weekly reminder for all of you bottoms out there who want to keep your buttholes on point. Yes, we are talking about the future method. And as soon as you're done with this, I want to follow up on one more thing.
Thank you. Get the future method today. Each time you clean out with water or enemas, delicate tissues are harmed and cells are damaged, increasing chances of injury and or STDs. The first of its kind, doctor-developed formula gently cleanses before you play without hurting your bum. Visit futuremethod.com to purchase your life-changing bum cleanser today.
Yes, Queen. So Jay went away. He was in Arizona. He was going to be gone for 2 weeks. We did mention that on the show. But Jay and Nick both bought these supplements that we were talking about with Dr. G. Tell me a little bit, very quickly, in 20 seconds or less, how are you feeling? What is it like?
When I remember to take it, it's amazing. Best bowel movements I've had in a long time.
She said it was huge.
But I have to say, it's not like an overnight thing. You have that's what's my problem is like I forget to take it in the morning or after breakfast or whatnot. I have to be more consistent because if you're consistent taking it twice a day, let me tell you.
Is it twice a day, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you Peloton almost every day? Mm-hmm. So take it before you go on your Peloton.
You're supposed to take it before you eat or after you eat.
Oh, okay. So what time do you normally eat?
So it depends on when I wake up. So I Peloton usually around 7:30, and then I'll make my breakfast. But then I'm usually running around like a crazy person because I got to walk the dog. Then I got to get ready, got to put my face on, got to do my hair.
So you do know that they make iPhone cases now that actually have pill pockets in the back?
Oh my God, I'm not that old.
We got to get you one of those so you can remember to take it.
All right, well, let's put a rubber on this motherfucker.
Yes, let's do that. So our show is available on our website, GayTalk2.0.com, under audio podcast. It is also available on as a free download on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher Radio.
All right. You can find us on social media, Facebook, GayTalk 2.0, Instagram, GayTalk 2.0, Twitter at GayTalk 20. You can email us at GayTalk 2.0 at GayTalk20.com. Tom, here you go.
And if you need to reach out to us, just head on over to our website, click on the Contact Us tab. It is located at the top of the web browser. There you can leave comments, suggest topics, submit a question for the cast or an individual host. You can also call us, leave us a voice message. We can answer those questions for you on the show. Just call 334-GAY-TALK. And if you need GayTalk, do I have an accent now? If you need all of the digits, it is 334-429-8255. I'm working on my enunciation, you can tell. Don't forget that we do stream live every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can access that live stream by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. That's all those shots you gave me, bitch.
First of all, no.
Yes.
Girl.
And with that is our show. Ladies and gents, have a good night, and thank you for joining us. Bye!
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gay Talk 2.0. Tune in next time for more dish.